Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new season of the B- podcast, the official Media Inc. podcast in the club for the Minot State Professional Communication Department here at Minot State University. I'm your host, Cole Clementich, and if you can recall from the past, pre-COVID back in 2020, B-, it was a podcast dedicated to talking broadcasting, communication, logistics, and ethics. And we want to give a quick shout out to Cameron Adam. He's now working for our professor Neil Roberts, but he was the one that started this podcast, that had the idea, and we just want to pay homage to the tradition. And this was the time it came with a podcast, and that was all Cameron's work, all his idea, and we want to give him the credit. And right now, we see ourselves in 2023. February 22nd is the date to be exact, and we're back with it for a brand new season, and we're gonna get pumping on some brand new content and some wonderful guests throughout the semester. Still not sure if it's going to be a weekly or bi-weekly event, but when we do get content, we will definitely pump those out for you guys. We're looking possibly Wednesdays. That is when usually Media Inc. meets, but we won't go too much into detail into that. But for now, shall we get started here, folks? And again, this is welcome to the B- podcast. I'm your host, Cole Clementich, the podcast for broadcasting, communication, logistics, and ethics. On the agenda today, to kick off the brand new season, I'm joined with a guest, the owner and operator of the Stria Sports Podcast and Parker Stria Photography. Give it up for the man himself, Parker Stria. Parker, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here, Parker, and being the first official guest for the brand new season of B-. Again, big shout out to Cameron for the idea, and we just wanted to continue on this tradition of talking the logistics and ethics and, kind of the work behind us, the comm majors, and maybe even some guests out there in the field. But Parker, starting off with you with your podcast, talk about your routine and just what's it like? What's the process like for starting up an episode for the Stria Sports Podcast?
So it pretty much just really the main idea of it is I just need to kind of get an idea for what I want to talk about, because I'm not an everyday podcast or even an every other day podcast episode guy. I just I'll find a sports topic that I find interesting. Like I know last year when I started, I talked about like Ben Roethlisberger retiring, Tom Brady retiring, and then, I didn't do an unretiring episode, but I kind of talk about things that are relevant in the sports world or just kind of any other sports topics that I think are interesting. Like I have an episode coming out in probably sometime next week or the following. I kind of created a list of a couple guys who I think, and then narrowed down to who I think is like the greatest NFL running back of all time, greatest receiver of all time. So it just kind of comes down to I need to get the idea in my head, and once I get like, okay, I want to talk about this, I want to do this, then it just comes down to research, because it's kind of hard to have the idea and have even a couple minute podcast, let alone a 20-30 minute episode, if you don't have information to back up what you're talking about and to kind of help you talk about it. Because if you have the information, you can kind of just base it off of that. So once I get the idea and do my research, I just kind of put it into a Google document, or not a Word document. I kind of have my intro in there, my outro in there, just so I kind of I know what to say so I don't forget it. I don't really like that it's so much or so scripted, or as scripted as it is, but it just kind of makes it easier for me at the moment. So I have that, and then I have just kind of the basic information that I want to talk about, and that's pretty much it. Once I get that stuff down, I come into this room that we're in, the podcast room, and I get my stuff set up. I use our audio board, and I record myself, and then I go back into the Beaver Tunnel, and then I believe it's Adobe Premiere Pro, that I put all my stuff together, put my audio file in there, and then I put my logo in there, and then from there I export it to a flash drive, and then I end up going on YouTube and I put it in there, and either I upload it right away or I just kind of schedule it from where I want it, and then I put it back into my Word document, that I have all my episodes in there. Every episode I've done and all the ones I want to do, I have in there, numbered, title, stuff like that. And then highlighted for white is nothing's done on it, but I want to do it. Red is it's done, but it needs, no, is it red? It's red or blue. I can't remember which one. I have a specific color for things that are prepared. So if I have the Word document, everything ready to be recorded, I have it one color. If it's done, put on YouTube, then it's another color, so then I know what I've done, what I want to do, and what I still need to finish up.
That's a lot of good stuff there, Parker. And we'll actually, this is kind of a little bit of foreshadowing what we're going to get more into in the show here. So a lot of great input there to start off there, Parker. And I should have prefaced this beforehand. This is discussing mostly professional sports. Do you maybe touch on a little bit of local sports, or is it just mostly professional and just kind of, the news that's happening? Like we just saw Kevin Durant get traded and, just kind of modern day news, that sort of thing for professional sports?
Primarily, it's just been professional sports and different topics throughout that, whether it's, I'm mainly NFL, NBA. I've talked a little bit about like WWE. I've done a little bit, I think, of like a UFC or like MMA, stuff like that, but I don't understand it enough to almost make it worth my while, if that makes sense. I don't want to put out like just a 4 or 5 minute video about something I don't understand. But I haven't really done a lot of even MSU stuff, whether that's any of our athletics or any other local like Bishop Bryan, stuff like that. I am kind of trying to get prepared for a couple episodes. I have stuff written out. I'm trying to work on, this is kind of a spoiler for what's coming up on my podcast, but I do have an episode that I'm trying to plan out where I interview the new Minot State head football coach, Ian Shields. I'm trying to went to high school with a wide receiver at Minnesota State University, Moorhead, and he was one of the top receivers in the NSIC this year. So I'm trying to set up an interview for him when he's back in the area, just to kind of something that helps put him out there, helps me get out there, and it just kind of helps out. And I'm just trying to get more into interviews, and with that, as I get further into that, I'm just going to be getting more local and Minot State people on there.
Awesome. Yeah, and I probably should have started with intros, because this is what I'm not sure if Cameron did this in the past, but yeah, I probably should have started with intros. Parker, just tell us a little bit about yourself and how the podcast came to be.
Yeah, so just kind of basic background information. I grew up on a farm just outside of Butte, North Dakota, which is about an hour from Minot. Population of like 60 or 70 maybe. It's not a very big town, not a very populated town. Went to high school in Velva, graduated in 2021 with a class of, I believe, 46. And then I knew that my plan was to come to Minot State, but I didn't know exactly what I was going to come for. It was either professional communications. After I kind of decided on that after I came to, I think it was like a junior event or something. I ended up meeting with Neil at something that was going on, and we kind of talked about it. And it was between that and biology, because I love nature, I love animals, and I wanted to kind of use that as my life's work. I wanted to study and do stuff like that. But then on one of my first tours here, I told them that I wanted to do biology, so we went and saw a cadaver lab, which kind of was not good. I got very white, almost passed out, just kind of knowing what goes on in rooms like that. If it was an animal, I wouldn't have been so bothered, and I know that cadavers aren't exactly everything in biology, and it would have just been kind of like a quote-unquote roadblock here at Minot State for me. But after that, I kind of decided, as much as I love nature, as much as I love animals, I'm going to go into professional communications. It allows me to do TV, radio, stuff like that. It allows me to talk about sports. So I've been here. This is my 4th semester here, 5th if I count last summer. But I don't know if I'm technically a sophomore or a junior. Year-wise, I'm a sophomore, but credit-wise, I think I count as a junior. So that's kind of my thing. And then for podcast, how I got that started, last spring, I believe the Media Inc. Club kind of was resurrected, as you stated, just before we started the podcast. And with that said, people kind of were talking about this is where you can create your own passion projects. You can do podcasts, you can do documentary, stuff like that. And I figured I like talking about sports. I love researching it. I love doing anything that has to do with sports. So I figured, why not? I know a little bit about the facilities, and if anything, I can always ask questions. But I figured I'll use the facilities. I'll try it out. If I don't like it, I just bring me some joy to actually be putting these episodes out, even though I can't always do it just because of scheduling. But from then to now, I think as of sometime next week, like Tuesday or Wednesday of next week, I will have put out my I record, and I kind of record in bulk. So then I'll post and then kind of schedule videos to come out in the future. But yeah, so episode 50 will come out. So I clearly still enjoy doing it, which is nice. But yeah, that's kind of about me. What about you, Cole?
Yes. As you guys had heard earlier, Cole Clementich, I am the host for the B- podcast. We're probably going to make Parker into a co-host because I know how much you have shown a little bit of interest in helping out with the podcast. But me, myself, I'm a Minot native, Minot high grad in 2019, so I know the area very well. I know a lot of people around here and there, and cast as well, but I didn't know where to start, if Minot State was going to be in my future plans. Thankfully, I found MSU Procom, and kind of the rest is history. My then advisor at the time led me to Neil, and you had touched on it earlier, Parker. It's all about Media Inc. with passion projects, and even more than just that, this is the official B- podcast for Media Inc., so it can be group events or group projects as well. So yeah, we're going to now kind of officially getting started, even though we're already 12 minutes in. But Parker, continuing on with your podcast, you talked about the routine a little bit and even scripts, just kind of maybe what are some guidelines that you might have to follow, like for the uploading process or trying to avoid any copyright issues? What are some things that you see kind of on a daily basis that kind of have to keep your ducks in a row?
I guess I really haven't encountered a lot of problems with guidelines and stuff. I know there's a couple things I do to kind of make sure I stay out of that. For instance, I created on GarageBand my intro and outro music for my podcast, so I'm not doing anything potentially that could give me a copyright strike or something by using another artist's music or anything like that. So I try to completely stay away from anything that other people have created when it comes to that. And I guess really the only other thing that I do is I try to stay very appropriate. As much as off the mic I may have a foul mouth every so often, which I'm not necessarily proud of, but I try to keep it as appropriate as I can. I try to be as respectful as I can regardless of what I'm talking about, just because I know I need to make myself not look bad. I'm representing myself when I do that, but also I'm representing Minot State. I'm representing Media Inc., the Professional Communications Department. So I also kind of need to keep that in mind, because I don't want to be a reason that the Professional Communications Department or something like that gets a bad look because I was saying something I shouldn't have or did something I shouldn't have. Just kind of reaching out to the right people so they know what's going on, so they aren't necessarily lost in the loop or lost in the whole situation, because that could potentially cause problems. I'm not exactly sure what type of problems they could cause, but I try to be as safe as I can, as respectful as I can with stuff like that, just to try to make sure problems don't arise. I guess I haven't had any problems so far.
Well, that's good. And there's a professionalism involved. And, you said it best, trying to be an example for the MSU Procom department. And not only that, on an individual basis, but also for, outsiders. I know we just did a podcast assignment not too long ago. You mentioned the idea of sponsorships. How important is it, to kind of conduct yourself, and, what's that process looking like? Have you looked into any sort of sponsorships and anything of that nature that you have seemed to have found or a liking for?
Up to this point, I really haven't put a lot of thought into sponsorships, so to say. I kind of just last night started thinking about, okay, maybe I could look into this. Maybe local business would be willing to let me do this or give me this or do something like that if I shout them out during an episode or a couple episodes, however that agreement would go. But I haven't really looked too much into it. I'm kind of just doing a little bit of research, just trying to figure out the best way to do it and how I can make it as I'm kind of lost for words, but make it as beneficial as I can for myself, but the business also. I need to keep it wouldn't be just me that would be getting the benefits of a sponsorship. I need to be able to help the company that is helping me out, and that's kind of a huge part. But in doing so, I also know that I need to make sure my content is appropriate, because I know a lot of businesses aren't going to want to partner with a content creator of any level, whether they're 34 subscribers or whatever, like I have, or millions of subscribers like a guy like Mr. Beast or whatever. They're not going to want to partner with a person that is spreading false things or is representing bad things. And you also, that's like I said earlier, I try to keep myself as appropriate and as respectful as I can, because I know that whether a sponsorship comes to me now or 10 years in the future, if I can keep that relationship healthy and I can let these businesses know or these people know that, okay, this person is good, they know what they're doing, they're not trying to cause harm, they're not trying to spread false information, or they're not saying things or going against our beliefs or guidelines, so to say, that, okay, this person can be beneficial for our company if we can help them out in any way.
No, yeah, it's a best of both worlds scenario. And like you said, it's all about helping them too. And, maybe we should get a sponsorship for this podcast, but we actually do a weekly Monday night series with athletics, and very fortunate to have Papa John's helping us out with that. And you touched on it earlier, having the technology and the resources to pump out content. We'll just kind of go through kind of what we have. So some of you viewers last time from watching Cameron's episodes, unfortunately having, with COVID taking everything out at the time. So we're actually inside Swain Hall now, currently, with Hartnett Hall undergoing a $25 million renovation, and it'll be ready early 2024. So we are looking forward to that. We used to be on the west side of over there, and we had our whole TV studio. We had a whole hallway with a podcast room, audio production room, and the Channel 19 room, of course. But we're now in Swain room 311, and this is our podcast room. It might be hard to see, guys, but we have our audio board turned on over here, and we actually have the iPad, so we can actually switch camera angles using the Mevo app. And we can do a video podcast. We can do an audio podcast straight from the audio board. We have it connected to our new KMSU Podcast YouTube channel. So that is a couple of things that you can expect to see from us this semester. I know some of you have watched the Inside the Dam podcast before. But 18 minutes in here, Parker, you mentioned also the Adobe programs, Adobe Premiere. That is also a big resource for uploading and editing videos, photos, audio, kind of that sort of thing. So those are some, the room next door, our computer lab, that also has the Adobe programs. And, Parker, when you're exporting your stuff to YouTube, talk about the algorithm a little bit. What are some things that you might see? Obviously, we can see it now, but, what are some hurdles that you may have had to face, or, just kind of your thoughts on the YouTube algorithm and how you just get through it?
I haven't had any obstacles, I guess, so far in doing this, but I know I've seen some stuff like with the algorithm. You just kind of need keywords, I think, is a huge part of whether people see your content or not. And while I'm not great at that, I'm still trying to learn and get better at that. But if something relevant is happening in the sports world, if, like you mentioned earlier, like with Kevin Durant getting traded or something, if I want to talk about that, I need to put his name in the title and not just a Western Conference team makes a big move for a star player. Like, that video with the second title is not going to get as well or as good of a reception as OMG massive trade Kevin Durant to the Suns. Like, that's
yep.
If you can mention keywords for a story, it's going to bring people from other videos to yours because it's going to show up in suggested. I still need to learn about the algorithm, but I'm kind of excited to learn about that. I'm very excited to learn about that and help grow my channel by using keywords, by using stuff like that, because it's all a computer program. I guess that's kind of the best way I put it. I don't know a lot about it, but I know keywords, stuff like that. You just got to be relevant. You don't want to be posting a video about a Kevin Durant trade 2 months after it happened, because it's just not gonna be received as well, because people want to get the news as soon as it's happening or very, very shortly after it's happening. So you just got to be timely also.
Yep. Shout out Woj and Shams as well. But yeah, you said it. I mean, we could have a whole show talking, using hashtags or keywords like you mentioned. we could save that for another episode if we do run short on content. But Parker, we're going to move on to your photography business. So Parker Shria Photography, just talk about what types of photos do you get on occasion?
So I'm primarily a sports and just kind of a nature, like outdoors photographer. As of now, really the only photography that I have posted on my Instagram page, which is at Parker Shria Photography, is Minot State football pictures from their practices and from their games. My freshman year, so back in 2021, I was able to get onto the field during practices and take pictures. I got a media pass and could go onto the field or the sideline during games and get pictures. And I do have a couple really good pictures that I really liked. I did have a picture, not to get way off topic, but I had a picture of Nyland Miller-Levi, who is a football player here, jumping over someone during a game. I was lucky enough to capture that.
I think
picture.
I saw that. That was really cool.
Yep. I'm so glad that I was able to capture that, because that was a 1 in a million shot that I don't think I could do again if I tried. But other than that, I've shot, I know also my freshman year, Minot State Athletics did a lip sync battle between all the athletic teams for, I think it was just, I don't know what, if it was MSU Life or something was doing it, but I was able to go there and take pictures, and I did that. But outside of, that's really all I've done for Minot State, other than a couple pictures here or there for the red and green potentially. But I'm also, like I said, a big outdoors person. Initially, the first place I ever took my camera was Alaska, so I was there taking pictures. I've taken it to the Yellowstone National Park. I plan on taking it to Lake Medora this summer, potentially riding Mountain National Park up in, I think it's Alberta, Canada. And I just kind of like going to these beautiful places, mountains, forests, rivers, like stuff like that. You can get really good, solid shots that don't really, I mean, if you know what you're doing, which I'm still trying to learn, but you can get such beautiful shots. And that's what I like doing. I like being able to capture the moments and stuff like that. And I also occasionally, like I said, I grew up on a farm, so my grandparents still live there. So like we have cattle, buffalo, stuff like that. So every so often I'll go out there and I'll try to capture some pictures of those and post them. But yeah, I'm primarily right now just an athletic and an outdoor photographer. If I can upgrade my camera in the future, I'm hoping I can do that. And then I'll move into probably more fast-paced, more, I can't think of the word for it, but just different genres, I don't know if that's the word I'm looking for, but just moving into different types of photography, different events, different stuff like that.
Oh yeah, for sure. And that Nyland Miller-Levi photo actually is a good segue to my next question. If anyone wants to use your photos, is there a process that you have, or is it just, feel free, just make sure to credit, what are your thoughts on that?
At the moment, it's more so just kind of don't take it without crediting me. I guess I don't really have a watermark or anything yet, which is something I need to work on. And I've thought about potentially trying to charge people to use my pictures or to take them, but at the same time, I'm not some famous photographer. I'm not a huge photographer. And while yes, I could, I have had a couple people in the past offer to pay me a little bit just for the pictures I've taken for them, but I'm not at that level yet. Well, yes, I should, in my opinion, get some compensation or get something for my work. I also think right now I'm leaning more towards, you can use my pictures, you can post them on your social media, stuff like that. Your family can do it. Just please tag me or mention me. Just kind of make sure you're not taking credit for the pictures. Well, yes, you may have been in it. I also just would kind of like to be able to have people see, oh, that's a beautiful picture. Oh, who took it? Oh, it was Parker Shria Photography, stuff like that. And then it also helps potentially grow my brand. If people see my work, they like it, then they might pay me. They might want pictures taken. So yeah, that's kind of all it is just, if you're going to use it, just give me credit. I'm not charging anything right now. And yeah, that's kind of all I got for that.
Yeah, I think that's, pretty fair. The basic startup for all photographers that are just getting into the field. Yeah, just kind of getting the credit. And I think that's most certainly important. And getting accessible content through your YouTube and social media, how important is that, do you feel?
Yeah, I think it's extremely important. I'm kind of lost with the question. I guess I'm kind of at a loss for words, but I like putting my content out there. I want to make it easily accessible for people. I don't put it behind a paywall. I don't put it behind a private account or anything like that. So you can just go to my YouTube, look up my podcast, and you'll find every single one of my episodes. You can go on Instagram, Facebook, look up my my photography page, and you're going to find it. It just kind of, like I mentioned earlier, with like the copy or with the using my photos, all it says on there, I just kind of have some information. If you're going to use it, just credit me, stuff like that. I think I make it pretty accessible. I don't have anything too crazy in my things that people have to type in. It's pretty easy to find. Just type in my name, Parker Street Photography, and it'll come up. And yeah, I don't want to put it behind a paywall. I might way in the future when I get more advanced into the business and stuff like that and my work is better, but right now I just kind of keep it the way I have it.
And most certainly not to downplay paywalls or anything, because it is valuable in some aspects. People do appreciate, the free content, the free access that they can get into anything. But moving on from field, how do you stay ready for segments like podcasts or TV shows like we have with Inside Out or anything like that? How do you keep a ready mindset?
I think I'll just kind of focus in on the MSU Inside Out, our TV show that we do every Thursday. I mean, I am the sports anchor, so it's a little difficult sometimes just because I might want to write a story about, or for my script about women's hockey like this week, but I don't know all the information because I could want to focus on their next game is this time, but it's right before we go live. And I would like to write about the updates for that game, but I can't because it's happening during the show. And my key for stuff like that is, well, yes, I do my research, I do stuff like that, and I kind of figure out what I want to do long before we go, is just be early. So like I'm always here early every Thursday before we go live, because that way if our producers or a director or whatever have a problem with something in my script, or they think I could reword it or rework it something, then I have plenty of time to do it before we go live. And it's just kind of my mindset with a lot of stuff is just be early. I try to be early to a lot of stuff because if you're not early, you're late. Well, obviously that kind of goes without saying.
I get you. Yep.
But I just like being early because then it gives me time if I need to do something else or if something is going wrong, then it just gives me time to focus in on that and get it done long before the event or the production is actually happening.
Yeah, all that is very good, important information to know. And just kind of a generic question for you, Parker. This is actually my last question on the list here. Just kind of a regular routine, being in the field. How should entities stay ready for a hot mic moment or anything like that could lead to potential problems? Like, how do they stay ready? What kind of steps do you think they take? And, just kind of touch on that a little bit there.
I mean, I think you just got to put guidelines in place. I know, especially with Inside Out, our show, you always got to be careful. And I mean, it goes without saying for every production like that, is you never know when a mic's going to be on. You never know when something you say and you think you're quiet is going to be heard. So I think a lot of it is common sense. You just got to know that, okay, we're live from this time to this time. I can say this stuff outside of that scheduled time that we're here, but while I'm here, I cannot say that because it could get me in trouble. It could get our production in trouble. It could get our university in trouble if you say something wild that should know what we really have set in place here for like reprimands if stuff like that happens. But I guess it just comes down to common sense. You got to be careful. You got to know when the right time to say things is. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, all wise words being said there, folks, from the Parker Street, as I struggle to get the camera set up going here. It looks like we may have had a little technical difficulty with the stream, but it is back up and running. But I do have a backup audio file just getting started here. But Parker, we are at 30 minutes now, half an hour. I have my own podcast. Would you like to ask me anything about, kind of what I do, or should we save it for another show?
I do got one question. I could ask how you started it, but I'm sure you've gotten into that a million times, and that can also be
that's
something.
All fair, yeah.
It can also be something we talk about in the future, but I'm more so just kind of because I know I have my own bucket list of people I want to get on my podcast, want to interview and talk to. So just kind of simple, like who are people that in the field, or whether it's in the field of professional communications or like in literally anything, are there any people that you are like, okay, I really want to get a soundbite with this person. I really want to interview this person for even 5 minutes.
Yep. Yeah, and all that's fair. I honestly, it may seem kind of selfish, but I mean, I do interview like the lesser known players. So like I do game coverage or live game coverage. I do live tweets on Twitter, live, I put up these score graphics on the Instagram story. And I also do them for Twitter as well, but I kind of like live game updates, who scored or who's leading or which players are leading the charge really. And, of course, some people that do know my routine is I do like to grab the athletes that don't get as much recognition, but in a more selfish way, like I do try and prioritize the star players or the top players. I know it was kind of unexpected, but a story I have with the Minot Minotauros a couple years back, I think it was in the 2021 NHL draft during the summer, the Toros had a player that actually got selected in the 6th round by the Anaheim Ducks. Kyle Kukkonen is his name. Now, granted, I totally forgot he was being scouted, but there was a San Jose Sharks scout before the season started, or at the very first home game he was there. I got the chance to meet him, and I think he was the player that he was looking at, or maybe looking at some other players, because I don't know if he was on the team then. But yeah, I saw a list, the NHL Central Scouting prospect list. He was on there, and I just kind of forgot about it after a while, but I actually did get the chance to interview him twice, and once I saw that he got drafted in the summer, I thought that's a cool story, and that could be a nice resume piece. So definitely the best players or the star players are the ones that do the most or like work the hardest, ones that go off to Division I university, or ones that are prospects. Like even with the Souris Valley SaberDogs, when they were in town, they actually had a player that got drafted by the Yankees. I didn't even know he was a prospect, but I had the chance to interview him. But, of course, the reason being how I got to interview him before was he had a good performance for a game. It was actually one of the very first games of that season, and he got drafted a year later. And, yeah, it's just all hard work pays off for those athletes. So, yeah, that is a very good question, Parker. And, yeah, we can call it quits there, 33 minutes in. What do you think? We can save some more content for a later show.
We absolutely can.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, anything else you would like to mention, Parker, before we call it quits here?
I might be a little selfish, but I would like to plug my stuff.
Oh yeah, so feel free. Good. Yeah, go ahead.
So you can check me out on YouTube and Instagram at the Stria Sports Podcast. YouTube is where I post all my videos. Instagram, I just kind of do mock trades, stuff like that, award predictions. I also do some of that on my YouTube, but most of it goes on Instagram. And you can check me out on Instagram and Facebook at Parker Stria Photography. I would plug my Shutterfly share page, but those are shutting down in about a month. So it does really no good to plug that if it's not going to be a thing in just 30-something days. So, yeah, check me out at the Stria Sports Podcast and Parker Stria Photography.
Honestly, I should just be taking notes because there's a lot of good stuff that you mentioned today that are really great topics for future shows. And, yeah, I should get one of those rolling. But, unfortunately, that is going to do it for us today. We are out of time. We're just approaching 35 minutes. But, Parker, thank you so much for being on the show today and the revamped B- podcast.
Thank you.
Stria Photography and the Stria Sports Podcast. That is going to do it for us in this first episode of B-, the brand new season. Again, we want to credit Cameron Adam. He was the comp major, kind of the leader or head or the president of Media Inc. that got this podcast started before COVID struck it all down. And, you know, we just kind of wanted to honor that tradition. And actually, Parker might be kind of more on a co-host level going forward. Next week, or well, we're still deciding either it's going to be weekly or bi-weekly show, but I think next time I want to try and get some people from the Red and Green, because I know they have stories in the past of how a lot of legal troubles that they had to go through that has happened before. We'll see if we can get any more guests on the show, but moving forward, this is how it's going to be. And yeah, again, we do apologize if there were some technical difficulties. I think the stream froze for a couple seconds, but it is back up. I do have a backup audio file in case we do need that. But again, you just heard Parker Stria. Thank you again, Parker, for being on. And that's going to do it for us on this first episode of the B-. keep updated on the KMSU social media pages. Follow on Instagram and Twitter at KMSU TV Radio. That is where you'll likely find any updates regarding the show when we're not live. And yeah, so we're still deciding either next week or the week after, but stay tuned for any content like that. So I want to thank you guys again for tuning in to watch. You guys have a good day, and we'll see you for the next show.